Morning, everyone. So that Corvette on the floor, that's a real beauty. You guys got to go check it out after the presentation. It's one of the most iconic American sports cars, supercars. We keep perfecting it every year and year, and as you can see, and everyone acknowledges that's a real beauty. Even better, we're going to talk to it sometime during this presentation. My name is Sid Madamanchi, and I'm here in front of you to talk about APIs and their role in the connected car space. So let me take a small step back and talk about, our journey up to which we've come so far. So in 1996, we obviously started the connected car revolution with OnStar, but this journey isn't just about 20 years old. It's we've experimented with connected cars as early as 1966, where we've had magnets embedded in roadways, and as vehicles actually would drive through them, they could communicate with the magnets in the road and actually learn to drive, and also see, and which actually would indicate any signs of trouble or also provide road signs. Today, we've expanded OnStar to about 4 continents, and we have about 12 million vehicles on the road today. And by the year 2020, we're going to have about 75% of our vehicles in some connected fashion. And as all of us would actually acknowledge, we've changed a lot with cars in the past 8 to 10 years than we've done in about the past 50 years. Technology, I think I made that point earlier, technology is disrupting every single industry. Automobile is definitely disrupted, and we at OnStar are definitely embracing this disruption. In-vehicle technology is now a top consideration when it comes to buying a car, right? And people are demanding that the car be as smart as their phone, and we're ready for that challenge. At GM, we're committed to actually bringing apps that you love into your vehicles. We want to bring the car into your digital life and the digital life into your car. This is a tagline that we use at GM. No matter what floor you go to, you hear that as a tagline because we've embraced that vision and that model. In the US, people spend about, say, 45 minutes in their cars per day. That's non-productive time, and we want to enter that space and feel people that they're actually spending that time in a valuable and a more productive manner. All right, so I want to talk to you about 2 sets of APIs that we have in our space. We've opened up these APIs to the general public using a CA portal, developer.gm.com. One can go in and register and have access to these APIs. We've also sponsored multiple API hackathon events so that you should be able to use these APIs, come up with ideas, and should one of you guys here build the next best app, that app is going to find its home in every GM car, right? So over the next few slides, let me talk to you in a little bit more detail about some of these APIs and actually some of the categories of these APIs. Again, our in-vehicle APIs, so 2 categories. So you have in-vehicle and you have remote APIs. So let's talk about the in-vehicle APIs. As the word says, these are vehicles that are used inside the vehicle. So mostly to do with the infotainment aspects of these vehicles, right? So we're partnering with in-vehicle radio manufacturers so that they could build an OS, an operating system, and an app store that we can all find very intuitive. Again, in-vehicle radio apps, radio hardware has come a long way. So the old clunkiness of you touching the hardware and the hardware responding after 2 seconds is no longer there. The intuitiveness is actually, the responsiveness is actually as close as interacting with your smartphone these days. We've truly publicized our APIs because we want to put you to put your thinking hats on and come up with something cool that finds its place into each of these guys, each of the cars. Okay, so again, how do we do this? Again, with the advances in the in-vehicle hardware, with the 4G connectivity in these vehicles, a lot more is possible, right? So we've in 2017, we're launching cars that actually have native apps that reinforce the principles of connectivity and customer engagement. We want the car to recognize who you are the moment you step into the car, and even better, we want you to take that experience with you should you go to some destination and you rent a car and you get into a GM car. That car now knows what your preferences are, knows what your seat position is, and adjusts to whatever your need is. So that's pretty cool. Again, this all is done through, the whole concept of connected cars. Okay, now at GM, we've also recognized that customer engagement is much more valuable than just selling a car and seeing you back again in 4 years. So we want to have that constant connection with you so that we can add value into your day-to-day interactions. So our latest offering in the past months has been the ability to actually offer coupons. When you drive through certain locations, if there are merchants out there that want to participate in actually these exchanges, those coupons would actually pop up in your dashboard, and you can actually purchase or actually interact using those coupons. So right in the middle of what you do and where you go is this latest product offering, and we're going to think it's actually a great value add both in your vehicle and on your mobile app as well, right? So the more streams that we're going to make this available in, people are going to love it. Now, the previous set of slides that you saw were mostly around the in-vehicle experience, right? So everything to do with the vehicle. What do you do when you're sitting inside the vehicle? How do you interact? What kind of coupons do you see? That's everything in the vehicle. Now, the next set of slides, I'd like to talk to you about the remote APIs. The remote APIs are APIs that we use to talk to the vehicle, right? So, and we could talk to the vehicle through multiple channels, through websites, through mobile apps. So I'd like to pause and actually showcase us having the ability to talk to the Corvette on the floor. So I'm going to connect. All right. So what you see me doing is actually logging into a mobile app that is configured specifically for that brand of a vehicle. Right? So this year we've actually launched brand-specific apps. So you're seeing me log into a Corvette, and this is me performing a remote command to the vehicle. So we've talked about making some noise on the floor. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to alert the honk horn alerts on this vehicle, and sure enough, I think we're going to have a few people turn heads. Yeah. All right. So as I'm on this app, I want to also showcase one more thing, guys. So which is the most utilized feature, at least in the Midwest and almost the northern part of this country, is actually the remote start feature. It's pretty phenomenal that you, just about 10 minutes before you leave work, you're able to remote start your car and walk into a car that actually feels warm. So not only your car, your seats are warmed enough, your steering wheel is actually warm enough. So that's actually the most utilized feature of the mobile app. Again, another example which I talked about, the ability to have coupons being sent to your vehicle, is actually this offering where everything shows up, which is actually more relevant to you, right? All right, let me move on from this slide. APIs in the mobile space. With every GM vehicle, now we actually offer the mobile app free. And with every vehicle now coming out of the lot in a connected fashion, you're able to talk to it, whether you have an OnStar subscription or not, right? Prior to us, 2-3 years ago, this feature was only available if you were a paid subscriber. Now this is actually available free of cost to everyone, right? Because we want you to connect with us more than ever. This year, we've also launched brand-specific apps. So instead of actually having a generic version of the mobile app, we're actually offering a Buick's version of an app, a Chevy version of an app, a Cadillac version of an app, and a GMC version of an app, right? So you feel that that's my app and that's my car, right? We also want to support a context-based engagement with you. What I mean by that is you don't own a vehicle, but you want to own a vehicle for that particular context. So you want to rent a vehicle for 3 hours a day, and it's not you sitting in the passenger seat, it's you renting that car for 3 hours in a day, and once you're done, you actually turn it back. So this is more prevalent in urban conditions where parking spaces are, so expensive, and millennials that actually want to not have to pay insurance, not have to buy a car, that just want to rent a car to take someone out for just a few hours in a day. This is phenomenal. So context-based engagement is something that we're investing in largely. And again, beyond remote commands, like I said, you will see our mobile app offering coupons and other services, right? The ability to turn on, turn off data. You've been nice, you actually rented your car out to a friend, and that vehicle now actually has data enabled. You should have the ability to turn on and off data using your mobile app, right? So all the data doesn't get eaten up. As Raheem was here, he was asking me, so what more have you seen? And I said, we've seen new revenue streams come in more from the fleet management side and the B2B side of the business, right? So because of the constant data pipe that we have with these vehicles, our vehicles are constantly sending data to the back office, which we can now share with telematics or fleet management companies that want to better manage their fleet, right? And as you can see some of the data on these slides, we're able to actually improve vehicle productivity, driver productivity. We're able to actually tell drivers to drive better. We have any conditions where driver behavior isn't optimal, we're able to talk to those people, right? And by constantly servicing these vehicles when the dates are up, we're able to increase the longevity of these vehicles. Again, over the next few years, we're going to see fleet management companies have a desired steep increase towards having their vehicles in a connected fashion. Why? Because that's going to keep providing them with lots of data that actually, they could increase their productivity, they could reduce their costs, and they could satisfy their drivers, right? So you're going to see a steep incline towards that, and the graph on that side actually does showcase the steep incline that you're going to see. The B2B space, the business-to-business space, has been very interesting in GM for the past couple of years. We've seen partners approach us and give us ideas that we've never played with before. We have solutions in place, not just to provide solutions for big fleet management companies. We also want to service the mom and pop fleets and then they in turn would work with some fleet management companies, right? So we want to be there in the market for everyone. We partnered with rental car companies that actually want to manage their fleets, that want to lock down their fleets at the end of the day, that want to understand what the diagnostic elements are of their vehicles so that they know when a car is actually up for an oil change. They can, and once the vehicle actually enters the lot, they're able to get the diagnostics of that vehicle and then line that up for an oil change, right? So this is where you see the vehicle productivity being increased. we actually had a use case where one of the partners came to us and said, hey, we'd like to have the ability to deliver packages directly to the vehicle because most of the time our customers aren't home and leaving it at the doorstep is okay, but if we can actually have you provide us the ability to deliver it directly to the car, that would be phenomenal. So it's ideas like these that are new, and we want to listen to all our B2B customers and see how we can cater to each and every one of them. Everyone's bringing a unique set of use cases, so it's been eye-opening for us. So with all that, like there's much more that's actually possible, right? So imagine the ability to actually, once you step into a car, the car knows that you're now heading home, and it's able to talk to Nest at home and say, okay, Sid's on his way home, why don't you dial up to a temperature that is most comfortable, is most optimal, right? And it knows the amount of time that I take to drive, so it actually turns it on right at the amount of time that it takes to warm up the house. I'd like to get an SMS when my family member, one of my kids, is actually running low on gas, so that if they're ignoring it, I could be prepared, right? So it's things like these. Much more is possible as the intent engines are becoming more and more accessible, right? Again, this is actually a snapshot of the entire GM ecosystem. What we're doing is, with all these set of APIs that we have, what you saw is just 2 sets of APIs, guys. So with all these set of APIs that we have, what we want to do is we want to partner with industry service providers. By that I mean we want to partner with the weather stations. We want to partner with traffic monitoring. We want to partner with, insurance companies. We want to share this data so as to actually make it better for, it's a win-win for our customers, for GM, and for these industry service providers. Take an example. There's a traffic signal that's always causing issues, right? With each GM vehicle in a connected fashion, we're able to actually give some data that actually tells these people to design their signals in a much more efficient manner. Think of weather. If it's raining, each GM car becomes a weather bot, right? You could say where it is raining, which roads to avoid. Again, if there's traffic congestion, that data is real time. You're able to feed that data back, again, to these industry service providers. Think of electric cars. Each of them is plugged into the grid. The electric car company can now have the ability to turn on, turn off, so that we don't tax the grid, and they can turn them on when the grid's actually running in a more efficient manner, right? So again, much more is possible because of the connected ecosystem that we have in place. And again, intent engines, making this more and more accessible. It's a very exciting time to be working at GM, specifically in the connected car space. With that, I'd like to open up the floor to any questions that the audience may have. And for that, I'd like to invite Rakesh and Brian on stage, who've been my partners in this whole API journey. And if you'd rather like to have a Q&A session off stage with us, I'm fine with that as well. So, sure. Sure.
So you guys talked a little bit about apps in the car space. What you guys think about voice and natural language processing as it relates to applications inside cars? Because traditionally you're not supposed to be looking at something while you're driving, right? But that interaction that you're seeing with a lot of the home connected devices like Alexa and Google Home now, right? I think that's got a big space in the car industry. I'm just wondering what you guys' thoughts are on that, if you're doing any research on that.
So the question is, what is GM doing about voice recognition and voice enabled app interactions? So Ryan, I think this is where we work. We work with Nuance and other related technologies. So while we also have some research in our labs where we're trying to actually eliminate, again, the road noise, the other distractions in the back seat of kids yelling. So yes, there are programs that we constantly work on to refine and actually get these commands right. But we're also working with companies like Nuance to actually perfect some of these solutions. Yep. Sure.
How are you sharing that information, with insurance agencies and other industries,
Sure.
Collectively, all this data and all this information without, violating the customer privacy?
Absolutely. So again, GM is a large company, and we're not kidding when it comes to legal stuff, right? So, so the question was, so if GM is collecting all this data, how are you guys satisfying the legal requirements of actually even collecting data? So let me raise my hand up and say, we're not collecting all data unless a subscriber or a customer is actually consented for it. So the way we start collecting data is if a fleet management company has said, we want you to start, we own these vehicles, and we want you to start collecting data for all these vehicles. So once the consent happened, that's when the trigger is actually set in the vehicle to start recording data. But prior to that, if you have a GM vehicle and you haven't consented, we have no record of what your driving behavior is. So that's the balance that we play with, right? So some of the incentives, and I think to a certain extent, I think Google does it where they want to offer up some incentive on your T1 internet line by actually you accepting some terms and conditions. That's the same thing that actually GM does, right? So if you want to avail of some insurance discounts, right? So the insurance companies would like to know what your driving behaviors are. Do you hard accelerate? Do you hard brake? All of that, all of that is made available when you consent, and we are able to share that data with them. But not all vehicles are being tracked, right? So and the data that we usually track is mostly diagnostics in nature, and it's also any events like hard acceleration and hard braking, right? So yeah.
Where does CarPlay and Android Auto fit in with what you guys are doing? Are you partnering or competing?
So CarPlay and Android are again, they're another app in our ecosystem. So you could say that we're actually partnering. We're definitely not competing with them. But we are right now at this point, we're using a version of Android in our vehicles from an operating system standpoint, but we do have vehicles that actually have the CarPlay feature as one of the apps in the ecosystem. Brian, you could take this.
So coming back to the data aspect of it, I know there's certain data that the customers own and have access to. Is there any data that the OEMs would actually have privileged data to? Like, for example, like if you had parts, you're doing diagnostics, it's not really specific to the user. Is that data that you can still access, or can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Do you guys want to take it? Let me repeat the question, and you can tell me if I understood this right. So your question is, there's a lot of data that you collect, even about diagnostics, and are you working with OEMs to showcase how useful it is? Okay, so Dylan's point is there a segregation between what is private data and what is data that actually can be shared with subscribers? There absolutely is, right? So what we're sharing outside is what your driving patterns are, right? So what what are the events that you trigger off when you drive your vehicle in a harsh manner or in a nice manner, right? So there's a certain amount of scoring that companies are actually interested in. Obviously, again, all of this built on the foundation that you've consented. It's you as a person have consented to actually collect this data, right? Without that, none of that data is shared. And as far as some of the data that actually is more parts related, that is data that actually we use inside GM to see which part with which model has been constantly either having outperforming or underperforming. So that's that data that we use internally.
So that second portion, you still need consent to capture?
We absolutely need consent to capture any data.
Yeah, and GM also has a lot of has its own fleet of vehicles that that engineering uses to collect data from. So they use that data from those vehicles to head off a lot of like warranty issues and probably save the company a lot of money. So GM uses its own fleet for that as well. Yeah.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on eSIM, whether or not you guys are for it or against it.
eSIM?
Yeah.
It's the ability to reconfigure the SIM in the vehicle to work on any network so that you're not tied to a single network.
I don't have an answer on that one.
Yeah. Yep.
Anything else, guys? No?
We could probably follow up on that one with
Yeah,
engineering.
we'll
team.
follow
Yeah.
up on that
Yeah.
one. I'll let you know. Yeah. All right, people. Thanks. Oh, one more question. Sure.
I missed the relationship between GM and CA. Can you tell us a little bit about the efficiencies that the company is gaining by using app management or API management?
Sure. So CA provides our gateway solution, and every interaction that you talk to the vehicle comes in through the API gateway. So that's the product that we have in place. And another product that we use in our space is obviously the CA portal. Developer.gm.com is a site that's actually hosted on the portal. So we use these two components pretty much in our everyday lives. But what's more crucial to us is CA provides the security to all the APIs that actually reside in our back office. All right, I guess that's time. Thanks, everyone.
Yep.